Son, and of the Holy Spirit. All right, so now some formal introductions of some special guests that we have today, and a bit of an introduction of how we'll spend our minutes. Like I said, I am Deacon Doug Peary. I'm a newly ordained deacon. I was ordained just last summer. I'm a happy helper of things and an eager participant, so it really is my pleasure to be here with you this morning. The person who called our meeting together here is Deacon Keith Davis, the director of the deacon offices, and I'll give him a chance to say a little more about how we're going to spend our day today in just a few minutes. But I also wanted to make sure we also introduce in the back of the room, Miss Yolanda. She's the secretary in the deacon's office. She's the one who helps make sure everything moves forward the way that it does, and she is the reason you have donuts this morning. Or for the people who are here, if you're online, Yolanda doesn't do home deliveries. Sorry. And then we also have another pair of special guests with us today. This is Antonio and Nicole. They're actually members of our aspirancy group. We'll talk a little more about the different groups that exist towards formation coming forward, but they are in formation on a journey towards the possibility of ordination in 2028. Do I have the year right? Perfect. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hi, Doug. Morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, especially those joining us online. We're grateful for you taking the time out of your morning just to find out a little bit more about what it means to be a permanent deacon. I'm grateful for Deacon Doug. Doug is a part of our formation team. So if this is something you pursue, you will get to know Doug a little bit because he is an integral part of who we are as in Deacon Formation. I am, as Deacon Doug said, I'm the director of Deacon Formation, and at the diaconate office, I've been ordained for 24 years. I actually was ordained in Phoenix, but I'm incarnated here in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. If you want to know what that means, ask your pastor. But you can switch between dioceses, but it's a fairly technical process. I am married with 4 children and 7 grandchildren. 4 of whom live here in Albuquerque, 2 in Washington State, and 1 in Kenya, which I never get to see the little boy, except he's going to come home for Christmas, so I'm happy about that. My wife and I also, we're members of Holy Rosary Parish here in Albuquerque, where I serve as a deacon as well. Great. So what we're going to do today for all of us is we're going to do some dialogue. We're going to Deacon Doug's going to lead a dialogue between Antonio, Nicole, and myself, and we're going to talk about what Deacon Formation is about. We're also going to have a chance for you to ask questions as well. So Deacon Doug will be asking us questions at the beginning. At the end, we'll have an opportunity for you, both those present and those online, to ask questions. And we can go as deep as you want. Okay. This is the first of 4 meetings that we have planned for people who are inquiring. They're not mandatory in any way. I mean, anything to be here. But we'll talk about the application process, I guess, a little bit later, and all those kinds of details. But you're welcome to come to all 4. This is not it. There'll be some shared information, but there'll be a little bit of, or quite a bit of different. They all have a different theme. Those of you present, if you picked up a schedule, you'd see that, and we can probably, for those of you online, we'll send that to you via email. It's just a simple schedule, but it has our things. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Deacon Doug.
You want to do individual introductions?
I think so. I think so.
So now we'll do an opportunity for everyone to just stand up, share who they are, share where they're from. A few details about your lives and your situation would help us get to know you just a little bit.
Pass the microphone.
We will, there are microphones here at the table here. And the microphones are pretty sensitive. You don't have to hold it right up your face. You can just hold it in front of you and it'll do a pretty good job. And you can come forward and face the group if you would like, but you can also just speak from your chair. The people from Zoom should be able to see us pretty well as well. So it's up to you, whatever makes you comfortable. Is there a volunteer who'd like to start us off?
I think they already did.
Oh yeah, we do have a microphone right there. Perfect.
She gave it to me.
Yeah, don't just hold it down.
Good morning. My name is Juan Gonzalez. This is my beautiful wife, Raylene Gonzalez, Las Vegas, New Mexico, Immaculate Conception Parish. And I actually have been, I guess you could say, discerning since about 2017, 2018, around there. And just recently, I feel that the Lord is calling me a little bit stronger recently due to my career changes and stuff. And just a lot stronger, I feel that he's calling when I'm in adoration with him. And in the background, I could hear Mother Mary do what he tells me. So that's why we're here and praying. Okay.
Good morning. My name's Adrian Montoya. I belong to the Holy Family in Albuquerque down on Atrisco and Central. I just professed as a secular Franciscan last year, and I was called into the Franciscans by Abraham Plasencia, and he became a deacon, or was becoming a deacon, passed away earlier this year at the age of 58. So he never got ordained, but that calling and his prayers has led me here. My wife passed away in 2018, and there's been a lot of deaths in my family, so I feel like this is my calling for ministry.
Welcome. Hi, I'm Arthur McGlasson. This is my wife Sharon, and we're from St. Jude. And Deacon Chuck has been asking me about thinking about becoming a deacon for the last year or so, and I keep telling them no. And they had a meeting at the parish a couple of weeks ago about this meeting and so I went to that, and I think I'm just gonna let Jesus lead me where he wants me to be, and if this is where he wants me to be, then I'll be here. So thank you.
Guess they can't see us from home, right?
Yeah, they can see you. They can see you.
Okay, my name is Gary Gold, and this is my wife, Melissa. We are both happily married for, better not say the number, for a very long time. We have 11 beautiful grandchildren. We're both retired. We're not working anymore. We're spending a lot of time at church, and I guess you can call it our discerning. We've been thinking about doing God's work for the last 5 years pretty heavily. Prior to that, we were, I don't know what you want to call it. We went to church, but we weren't as deeply involved with church. And we have now seen what a true Catholic is. During our discernment, we read the scripture, we do Bible studies, we've gone to different churches, we see different ways. And all we want to do each day is get closer to God. Deacon George at my parish at Incarnation Church in Rio Rancho has been asking me, obviously, to see how things would go if I became a deacon. He's given me some advice and told me the situations. And I just feel that as I go to church daily, I feel the presence of the Holy Spirit coming upon us. And I know that God is asking us to get in and try to be the light for most people. Discernment is different for a lot of us. We see things differently. All I want to do, and all my wife wants to do, is worship God. And we're here for others, not ourselves. I think the biggest thing of it is trying to put ourselves before God, and we want to just put God first. Our father, Leo, he did a homily one time, and it stands very clearly in my mind about subjective and objective. He says all of us have a subjective idea, a thought of doing things, of our own way, our own path. We need to die to ourselves and become objective and just do God's work. And when you sit down and you analyze that and you think about that, each day you wake up and you're blessed that you have a beautiful day. I don't care if it's cold, rain, it's just a day God gave us. And we need to do his will and not ours. So long story short, we feel that is our calling, and that we're going to do God's will and see where it takes us. It may not be this, it may be something else, but we're going to answer the call and walk as far as we can. And if it takes us to heaven, then it takes us to heaven, and we hope it does. But that's it. And don't give me the microphone, because I like to talk.
My name is Arthur Martinez. This is Andrea. We've been happily married for 19 years. We go to Nativity Parish on 4th and Alameda, the little church with the blue roof. not so blue anymore, but we've just been active in our parish for quite a few years. Our children are active in the parish. We're active in the parish, and I lead a men's group. She's worked with the Women of Grace, the Young Women of Grace. When Deacon Oliverian reached out to us and asked us to become deacon, we were a little surprised, it wasn't something I had been looking for. But since he's asked us, it's like really feels like God asked, is what it felt like. And for me, the thing that keeps coming back to my mind is that gospel reading where it says, who shall I send? And send me. That's the one that keeps coming up in my head. And I tell people, be careful what you complain about, you'll be asked to fix it. So and then when you're asked to fix it by God, how are you going to say no? So like Andrea said, we were talking earlier, and we're talking about we're not going to start out saying no to God right off the bat. So I'm a retired fire captain. I'm still working. I teach at CNM, but this is a direction I think that we're headed for. So we're very happy to be here.
Good morning. My name is Tim Sesbo. This is my wife, Loretta. We've also been married 19 years. We've been going to St. Jude for almost 20. I received my calling probably about 7 years ago. We're both very active in the church. We're both Eucharistic ministers. I serve as a knight, so does Arthur. We're 4th degree Knights of Columbus. I have a pretty funny story. So, like I said, I received my calling 7 years ago, and I was talking to my wife one day. I was like, you know what? I think I need to become a Eucharistic minister. The following Sunday, Father goes, we need help with Eucharistic ministers. So if that's not a calling from God, I don't know what is. Then I tell my wife, I'm thinking about becoming a knight. A couple weeks later, I meet the Grand Knight at our parish. Walk right up to him, and he introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and he goes, I'm the Grand Knight. I was like, well, you're just the man I need to talk to. So there's my second calling. And then my third calling, I told my wife, I was like, I'm thinking about becoming a deacon. A while later, Father True comes up to me and goes, have you ever thought about becoming a deacon? I just kind of laughed at him. I was like, actually, I have. And he goes, well, we're having a meeting tomorrow night. Want to come to it and find out about Deacon Formation? I said, absolutely. So those are my 3 callings that I've received. So I'm just glad to be here.
I joke with him, what are you gonna ask for today?
So you guys should chat about being lottery winners.
Yeah. You can say that, but I don't think God's going to give us $1 million.
How about if, can we hear from the guys online first before?
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey, how are you? My name's Felipe Medina. This is my wife right here. I don't know if you're here, Lisa Medina. We've been together, married 21 years. Been together 30. We got 3 beautiful girls. Youngest one is still with us. As far as my faith journey, I think I always tell my wife she'd be a better deacon than I would be if we ever tried it. But she's real deep in her faith, which is great. I'm actually following up behind her. She's been a great mentor to me. And for some pilgrimage that we've been on together, several deacons and Father Tree has asked me if I've ever thought about being a deacon. I never did really think about it in the past, but recently, I've been gaining signs here and there. from God and the love of God, I'm here. And I believe like one of the guys said there, if I'm called, I don't want to say no. Can't say no. So I'm happy to be here and very honored.
Welcome, thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Isaiah Leva. This is my wife, Bridget. We are also go to St. Jude Thaddeus Parish, and we have 3 kids who are 12, 11, and 9. They're really good kids. They serve at Mass. We go at 7 a.m. on Sunday, so they're sometimes they wake us up to get to Mass, which is a nice little blessing. But I'm a lecturer over there at St. Jude, and then me and my wife, we teach First Communion together, and yeah, definitely have felt called my whole life, and definitely just want to serve and pray. And like I was telling the guys online before, I just definitely want to increase my calling. And even if I don't become a deacon, I still, definitely want to increase what I'm doing for the Lord. And yeah, I'm just definitely honored to be here and honored that Father Tree asked me to at least consider the diaconate. And yeah, I'm just ready to see where the Lord and all you guys will take me and us and where we'll go together. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Torres from Las Vegas, New Mexico, Immaculate Conception. I've been discerning the diaconate for a long time, and I put it off back in about 2017, 18. Father Rob from Our Lady of Sorrows approached me about being a deacon, and I kind of put it off. I said, no, I'm too young. I don't know about that. But I felt a calling to holy orders since I was a kid. And then my dad became a deacon. My dad was ordained a deacon about 7 years ago. And so seeing him through the process and him as forming, and a family that prays together stays together. And really my dad becoming a deacon has really changed my spiritual life. I mean, he and I'm very honored that I could serve Mass with my dad. I serve as an altar server during the week. I do music ministry. I help the church in all different ways. And so I've been doing this for a while, discerning for a while. And finally, my pastor, Father Dennis, told me, you need to stop discerning and do something about it. So that's why I'm here, and I'm ready to answer the call.
Great, Patrick. In fact, my dad was a deacon as well. See, so it does happen.
Good morning. I'm Christopher Jacob Izarraga from San Antonio de Padua and Peñasco, and I'm here with my there. That's myself. Hold on. Where did I go?
We're lost.
We see you. We see you.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And I'm here with my other half, Alice. And I've always had a calling, either it be the diaconate or holy orders. I've always had some type of calling. And a few months back, our Deacon Patrick came and told me, you know what? If we're having these meetings, would you like to come and join us? I said, you know what? It's time. I got to answer the call. It's time to stop ignoring. I mean, we're very active in our parish. We're mayordomos. We're confirmation teachers. I'm the DRE presently for our church. So we're very, very active as it is. I just think there's more to it. I always felt that there's something missing, and I believe this is it. This is the time for me to actually pull in my pants and be like, you know what? I got to follow my calling. I can't say no anymore. I mean, me personally, I told Archbishop Sheen no. He called me personally to invite me to a retreat for the priesthood, and I ignored him, and that eats me now. And I'm like, no, I should have done that. I should have just answered. How he got my phone number, I have no idea. But he personally called me to invite me, and I just ignored it. So I'm like, you know what? It's time to stop saying no and start listening and start following.
Good morning. I'm Brandon Eric from T. Harrison, or from Holy Child in T. Harris. Part of our journey is that we've got older kids. We've got one child that's now in college, one that's now in a firefighter academy. We've got another that's a junior in high school. You know, bringing up our children in our faith has been our mission for so long. And now that they're leaving the house, it's like, okay, how do you still live on mission? How do you really fill that void and devote your time to the Lord and His community here on earth? And we were kind of discerning the diaconate when one day after Mass got cornered by Father Granito and Deacon Morris, saying, "Hey, how do we get holy men in order to be deacons, in order to support?" So I was obviously ambushed in that case, and so my discernment became a little bit stronger at that point. Went through this process a couple years ago. Speaking with the Lord, and the answer was yes. I think you should do the diaconate, but not yet. And so now that we've got a little bit more of the transition path in our life, my wife and I are definitely reevaluating this a lot stronger as to is this now how we maintain our life and mission in support of the Lord.
Excellent, thank you.
That's everything. Yeah.
Did anyone think of anything you meant to say when you had your turn?
No.
All right, well, then now I'm going to invite Antonio and Nicole to come up, and we'll have a chat about some of the information you might like to share. While we're getting to that, there is coffee and donuts in the back here if you want to help yourself, if you're here in person. There are also restrooms right outside in the hallway here. Gentlemen on this side, ladies on the far side. And there's also bottles of water in the fridge right across the hall. So anytime you need anything to help you get through the rest of your morning, feel free to help yourselves to what we have available. Great. Would you guys like to sit together? I can move over one. That way you guys can be, yes? You agreed to it. All right, well, welcome. It's good to see you guys. Just as a reminder, this is Antonio and Nicole. They're in the formation process right now in the group known as aspirants, and Deacon Keith will talk more about the different categories of formation in just a little while. Welcome. It's good to have you guys here with us today. We're happy to be with you. I have a question for you. Deacon called and asked for this thing. Why did you say yes to him when he called?
So, good morning. My name is Antonio Gonzalez. This is my wife, Nicole. We are also members of Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary with Deacon Keith, so that's the beginning of the answer. Because I'll see him tomorrow at church, and if I say no, I can't hide.
Maybe at the early Mass.
Okay. I think one of the reasons we said yes was one of the fundamental characteristics, as I understand it, of the diaconate is that of service. And as I've discerned throughout the years and gotten to know myself in a more deep way, what makes me happy, authentically happy, what makes me fulfilled is when I'm serving. It's not always easy. It's not always convenient. But I've noticed what fills my cup is that of service. So this morning is just a little step in service to hopefully giving you all just a kernel of information that maybe will benefit you as you discern and go on your journey, and just help, I hope. It's a process, it's a discernment, it's a pilgrimage of discernment. So I hope that resonates with you, and that's a little bit of the why I responded.
Well, welcome. We couldn't do this without you, so we're glad that you're here. Deacon Keith, what would you say are the essential characteristics of a deacon?
Well, I think Antonio mentioned probably the most important one is just the heart of a servant. So someone who is just willing and finds satisfaction in helping others. And that helping others is a real broad thing. I mean, so it's just being of service to what the needs of other people. We heard that in last Sunday's gospel, right? is the call to be a servant, the servant of all. So that's and the word servant, the word deacon is derived from the Greek word diakonos, which is translated into servant. So it sort of goes with the name, right? But the second thing, I think part of that is that it's a call to holy orders. And so we're all called by virtue of our baptism to serve. I mean, every single person, I don't care who you are, if you're baptized, you're called to serve no more, no less than anybody else. So a deacon doesn't serve more than that, but a deacon, that someone who seeks to be ordained as a deacon has to find that particular charism so imperative in their lives. But the second part of that is that you are called to holy orders. That means you're called to a different relationship with the church. As a layperson, your relationship with the church is deep. It's rooted in your baptism. It's rooted in ministry. But the bottom line as a layperson is you have an awful lot of flexibility and a lot of choices to make. As in holy orders, that gets tied in, and it's akin in my mind as the difference between being a single person and a married person. A single person has a lot of flexibility in their lives. When you get married, you promise obedience to your spouse. Well, holy orders, you're going to be promising obedience to the bishop, to the archbishop. So, in a sense, going from a lay person to being ordained is that serious of a thing? It's just as akin to going from single to married. That's one of the reasons why, in order to even seek to be ordained as a permanent deacon, if you're married, you have to be married at least 5 years, because you've already gone through one huge transition, and then you're going to ask to go through a second big transition in that respect. So it's service, but it's also, in a sense, then leadership, because holy orders enters you into the order into the clergy. And as a clergy person, you're going to be seen as a leader. Now, as a lay person, you may be seen as a leader as well, but this isn't there's a difference in that respect. So through all of this, it's all rooted in our baptism, and there's this sense of a call to holiness as well. So that as a deacon, we're people of prayer, a deep prayer. Now, again, that's not different than a lay person, but people are going to be looking to you in terms of your spirituality. You're going to be as a deacon, you're setting yourself up as the icon of Jesus, the servant. So that's a person of prayer, a person who's called to leadership, and a person of service. So one of the terms we've sort of used is a deacon is a holy servant leader, if you will. And that's just one way of looking at it.
So just to restate, what I think I heard you say was that those three elements of holiness, service, and leadership, there are ministries of holiness. There are ministries of service. There are ministries of leadership. And the diaconate is a ministry of the three, interconnected, inseparable, always adding to each other and building from those three aspects.
Yeah, that's great. That's good summary.
So clearly we're not all ready for that ministry. Clearly we don't already have everything we need to be prepared to be holy servant leaders. So what's the process of formation look like to help people develop those three characteristics? I think there are 4 pillars: human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, I think even before that, I think we're looking for people with particular characteristics, which is what I just. So I think you're coming to this with that attitude of holy servant leadership. Now, doesn't mean it's fully developed, but that there's a seed there. And and no one's going to be perfect in their holiness. No one's going to be perfect in their service. No one's going to be perfect in their leadership. But that there's something there, and so we have, first of all, we have characteristics we're looking at, like someone who's living out gospel values. If if this is something you're called to, well, then you should be attracted to living the way that the gospel that Jesus calls us to live, and with that heart of service. Then there's, of course, there are certain qualities that might preclude you from becoming a deacon. And so the church even outlines some of those. So for example, as I mentioned one already, if you are married, you have to be married for at least 5 years. That would be an important thing. If you're new to the church, if you're just coming back into, back to the church, you want to get your feet back on the ground. So let's say you just attended an Acts retreat last month, and now you feel called to be a deacon. Well, maybe that's true, but let's give it a couple of years to find out, type thing, So if you've just come into the church through RCIA or something, you want to give that some time. And there's you can go to the website and you can look at the whole list of qualifications. But the way that we form people then is what you're asking, is so we take people who have discerned that perhaps this is their calling. And the church will take a look at you and either confirm or say no. I mean, it's the interesting thing about holy orders. There's 7 sacraments. Holy orders is the only sacrament that you don't have a right to. All the other sacraments, every single other sacrament, as a baptized person, you have a right to all of the other sacraments except holy orders. The church puts restrictions on who can be ordained. So once there's been some mutual, you've made an application and you've decided that this is something you want to pursue, well, then the church is going to take a look at you. And during that process, we're going to start forming you, and forming you in holiness, forming you in service, and forming you in leadership. And as Deacon Doug mentioned, there's 4 pillars. There's 4 ways, or four ways of looking at dimensions that we can look at that. Now they're all interrelated, so they're not that dichotomous. But we will look at your humanness. You're called to be fully human. Do you have the human skills, the human traits, the personality, that heart of a servant? Well, that's a human quality, right? So we're going to develop that humanness with you in your. We also have a spirituality. So we'll be, in fact, the first 2 years of aspirancy, there's a little bit more emphasis on spirituality than there are on the other 3 pillars. So again, we hit them all. And so spirituality is we do retreats, we teach you new ways of praying. You're accountable for your prayer life. We teach you a discipline of prayer. So those are all really positive things. And then there's the intellectual aspect. A lot of people, are very attracted. They think that this is about going to school, and there's an academic element to it, but it's just one of the 4 pillars. So one of the 4 pillars will be an academic element, and that will involve sort of college level work, but giving you a little bit more knowledge so that you can be a better teacher and a better preacher. And then finally, there's the pastoral pillar, the skills that you need just to help other people. There's things that will help you learn that will make you more attentive to the needs of others and better able to serve their needs. Does that help?
Helps me. Yeah. Here's something else that might help, though. You guys have been involved in this formation for a couple of years now. So we have these pillars that we're looking at: your human self, your spiritual self, your intellectual self, and your pastoral self. How has the formation contributed to your growth in any of those areas?
The first thing that comes to mind in answering that question is, for me, I had to let go and let God. By trade, I'm a teacher, and I'm a planner. I can build a syllabus. I can build a lesson plan. I'm an Excel genius. I can color code a calendar. Wow. And I had to let all of that go. My point is, formation is different in the sense that you need to let go and you need to let God. Really trusting that this is a different kind of process. It's not a class. It's not necessarily a beginning with a finite endpoint. But I've learned it's a process of recognizing who I am in a deeper way. And one of the things that I really believe the wisdom of the formation process has given me is it continues to unfold. And you have your monthly formation meetings that you come to, and there's always a theme to the weekend. And it's built on and complemented by a class, a block that you'll take in terms of the interim between formation meetings, 6 weeks, whatever the block is. And then you'll have a practicum, which is an extended period of time where you deeply look into a dimension of the 4 pillars. So for example, right now, I'm in the midst of the practicum around social outreach, serving the poor. And through all of these dimensions, what it's done for me is it has shown me that formation is complex. And the way that you open yourself to formation, I've learned, is you let go. And for me, if I'm being frank, I had to get over myself. I had to get over the temptation of wanting to understand the nuance or the next step or the how does it build on each other necessarily, because it does. It really does, and it's pretty amazing. But what I had to learn is in a different way. And I had to allow God's hand and the Holy Spirit to move within myself and to let go to the process, which is built over years in the formation program of this Archdiocese that I'm sure is complemented by lessons learned throughout the nation and the world.
And he's talking on that aspect too, but also within our marriage, I feel like that has also helped us the same way. We were always, okay, we want to have kids and this and that, and we want them to go soccer practice and all these things, but then to serve together and just to be able to also build on our own marriage in the sense of formation has been a blessing, because again, we try to be so structured, and it's always nice to have these conversations before and after formation as well. And it's almost like, at first we called it like we're going on a date, but you know, it is, we're still honestly dating each other with our spirituality as well, growing together, because we may feel tired one day and then we kind of come together on usually Friday nights, right? And so we're building our relationship with God, but also with ourselves. And the other thing that I feel it's made us, not that we've always served, and like, you know, we can say all these things as First Communion teacher, Eucharistic, but to be able to start trying to understand this sacrament as well. Like, we teach our children, like, this is a sacrament for tools, right? God always gives us the tools of reconciliation and everything like that. But I feel like it's also been a blessing in our marriage in that sense, that it is another tool outside of, you know, just our matrimony, you know, but we're growing together in our faith that way. And then also bringing in everybody else with it, like sitting here with you guys. We talk a lot about the social teachings of the church, and that's really at the beginning has like kind of helped us to open ourselves as well to other areas. And Antonio's been able to just practicum now, and he comes with beautiful stories of people that have touched him that day, whether it's 2 minutes or whatever that they saw him. And so growing to see each other, I mean, being able to see each other grow, and that has been a blessing too, because I will tell you, he is type A, and I'm type A some days, and like, or whatever, red or blue we want to call it, but it's helped us to let go and just enjoy each other and God's presence around us, like not being so structured. It's good to be structured because we need that, right? As you know, as deacons and wives, but just to have that sense of opening ourselves to others too in a different way that we might not have thought. Like, we weren't always signing up right away to go to Good Shepherd or anything like that, but it's allowing us to go to the outskirts, and that's been a blessing too. So because we have a great faith community, but reaching those people that God's really asking us to touch, so that's been great.
So the way I'm hearing it, it sounds a little less like a college program that has a degree at the end where you're checking off the to-dos to get that degree, and more like you would want college to be, a chance to really grow and experience life as the person we will become.
Just being open to it.
Mhm. It seems like that might take a while.
It does.
Is there a timeline? My guess is that's going to be everyone's number one question is, how long does that take? Yeah.
Well, let me start with that. Some of you said you've been in discerning this for a long time, right? Years. So when did this process start? Years ago, right? This is not the beginning for many of you, but for others, maybe, you know, Father just talked to you a couple weeks ago, and this is brand new. That's okay, right? The process is somewhat amorphous in that respect. Your calling and your discernment, it's going to be custom made to you because it's your calling. That said, there is a you know, a method to the madness, if you will. There's a way that we go about this, and the process takes roughly, if all works out well, you know, around 5 years before ordination, and then there's 5 years of post-ordination formation, and then there's always ongoing formation after that. So the 5 years of, you know, right now is, we just call this period sort of inquiry. You're just asking a lot of questions, sort of akin to RCIA or OCIA, where we have an inquiry period, and that could be, I work with OCIA. I've had people in inquiry for years. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's just, some people just, they're not sure they want to be baptized, but they love coming to class. I don't know. So we have had, you know, we have people that have been inquiring. You know, Brandon online had started this process a couple of years ago. He's been at meetings before. We have other people in our program who have been inquiring for and had their name on our mailing list, if that helps, for, you know, 5-10 years. So that can happen that way. Once you make application, the applications process will begin in November, December, late at the end of this year. And it takes time to complete your application. The application process is involved. It's like 20 pages long, but it also involves getting a report from your doctor, getting a report from your dentist. So those are all the things you might want to start thinking about, making appointments with your doctor and dentist. You don't have the forms yet, but for some time in, you know, the end of this year, beginning of next year, it'll require letters of recommendation, background checks, all kinds of things like that go on with that. We have a committee called the Admissions and Scrutinies Committee. It's appointed by the Archbishop. It's a group of priests, deacons, and laypersons who review your files. And the first scrutiny that we would, if you will, the first process that the church will do is to go through and look at your application materials, and they will make each member of the scrutiny committee will make a recommendation to the Archbishop as to whether or not you should be accepted into Deacon Formation. And then I will meet with you, and the application deadline is the end of March. I will meet with you in July or August, or June or July probably. And I'll meet with you at your parish and let you know what the Archbishop's decided. During this process, you don't do it alone. We ask that you, and Deacon Doug will help you to get a mentor into a mentor group. How many of you are already meeting with a mentor group? Any of you guys? A couple of you guys are, yeah. So the rest of you, that we get you connected with other people in formation, so that, and with a deacon couple who will help you along through this whole process. You're not alone. It's not something you do by yourself. If you're admitted into aspirancy, is the first stage. Aspirancy lasts for 2 years. Antonia and Nicole are in the aspirancy. They just started their second year of aspirancy. During aspirancy, as they've said, it's just the process of things we've talked about, the spirituality, the prayer, and all those things, and the outreach to the poor is a big part of that. At the end of the 2 years of aspirancy, what they'll be going through now is some more poking and prodding, if you will. They've done a psychological evaluation. They'll be doing a marriage evaluation. They'll do a language evaluation. They'll do several other things that will actually record Antonio proclaiming a reading, so we can see what his proclamation skills are like. All that goes to this scrutiny committee, and they evaluate all those materials, and then they make a recommendation to the Archbishop as to who should be selected to be entered or to be installed as a candidate for holy orders. And that's an official right of the church, that the Archbishop prays over them, blesses them, and calls them into candidacy. And really, what we're looking at candidacy is we really see a deacon here is someone that the church would like to see ordained. That doesn't guarantee ordination, but it certainly gets you a lot closer. And then candidacy lasts for 3 years. And during candidacy, things have started to intensify. What you'll find is that formation, as he said, it builds on each other. It also somewhat intensifies. The final 3 years build and build, and each of those 3 years have a particular theme. The first year of candidacy focuses on the ministry of the word. Then the second year of candidacy focuses on the transition between that word and the ministry of the altar. And then the third year of candidacy is pretty much all focused on your role as a liturgical minister and before ordination. And then, God willing, you're ordained, and then we have 5 years of post-ordination formation, which is not as intense. It's much. Deacon Doug can talk about that a little bit more too. It's much less intense, but it's still there. There's still some requirements.
Yeah, I misspoke quite a bit when I said I didn't need formation earlier. I guess what I meant to say is I didn't need this information, because we still need that formation. In fact, we had several things that we wanted to happen during our formation that just never came up. And so that's how we're using some of our post-ordination sessions, is to be able to visit some of those aspects of our ministry that we didn't get a chance to. For example, many of us would like to learn about chant and how to lead or proclaim the gospel through chanting rather than just reading it. And we were busy. He's right, it intensifies, and there was a lot to do. So we didn't get to some of those other aspects of it that might be helpful or interesting. We're working on those kinds of things now.
So overall, you're looking, from this point here, you're looking about almost 6 years from this point. 5 years from admission into aspirancy.
My guess would be another major question that they have is, as they enter into this formation, what kind of effect does that have on your calendar? What kind of effect does that have on your schedule? You guys are the most recently into the lifestyle of this. Can you talk to us a little bit about how entering formation has affected your busyness?
So I appreciate that question, and I think it's an important one. Part of the discernment process and part of the formation process for us is we are blessed to be exposed to some amazing speakers and people that are able to assist us. And Deacon Keith, the wisdom that he brings and the perspective that he brings. I think he was the formation director for the diaconate in the Diocese of Phoenix, and he's able to do it here. So it's apparent, is my point, that he has a command over the process. And a couple of things come to mind is, in my specific experience, the notion of vocation is something that I grasped, and I don't know if I toyed with it very much as a young person, but my dad took me on the pilgrimage of vocations when I was a teenager, young. And I've done the 100-mile pilgrimage of vocations in the Archdiocese, sponsored through the Archdiocese for years. I've done several of them. In fact, that's how I met Nicole. So the notion of vocation came up, and our pastor at the time, Father Graham Golden at Holy Rosary, approached us about the diaconate shortly before he was transferred and then passed away. And kind of at the moment for us, it seemed like, well, that's all there is for
Clear.
that. It was a difficult time in our life, in our parish life, and for several reasons. But as I mentioned, we met as undergrads at UNM at the Newman Center at the time. Father Andy Pavlak, who would coincidentally become our pastor at Holy Rosary following Father Graham, was there. So we had that connection, and he kind of one day early on in his ministry in the midst of COVID, like, ha, 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 I know the conversations you've been having. So we engaged with him. I tell you all of that because is there ever a right time is something that we grappled with. I mean, we have 4 children. They're all still at home. We do the whole practice, athletic practice circuit and the music circuit and the take them to school and pick them up and the whole thing. We both work full time. I remember a conversation I had with Deacon Keith, who told me I've had everybody come through formation, some of which all the kids are out of the house, some of which all the kids are still at home, or some have some, like a mix. And we've kind of had an honest conversation with each other in terms of when's the right time and will there ever be a right time. So we decided through a period of prayer and a period of discernment, I guess, that we'll let go and let God. And if God guides us from a beginning to an end, great. If we we'll see where we go. But we have made intentional steps to organize ourselves in terms of setting time aside for the reading and prayer that we have to do, which has grown us together because we've had conversations now that we never had before in terms of just, what do you think that meant? Or did you read this? Or I really didn't understand that. Help me. We have class in 15 minutes and I need you to translate for me. But it brought us closer together. So I think that's part of my answer. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, and I think the main thing, again, going back to it's helped us grow, but communication, coming back to all that, like he's saying, we're lucky now that we have Google calendars and, you know, all those things, like putting it in our calendars. We pull out our calendars. Okay, we have mentor this day. And so that also with our, I guess, peers, right? We also share our calendars together because we have to meet in certain times, and everyone so respects our time, and we respect theirs as well. Like, oh, I can't do it that day because this, and this. And so just communicating with ourselves and being honest, like, hey, we can't do that day, or this is what's going on. But as we try to, it's helped us plan as well our lives. And then the other thing is, it is a blessing to also do it with our children because it is a formation with our kids. And they fully understand that we're mom and dad are going to meetings or formation, and they love it because grandma comes in, tia, tío, everybody that's helping us build our relationships, but are being able to fulfill, hopefully, the diaconate if it becomes a deacon, or we together. But so it's helped us build those relationships, and then our kids are just loving being a part of it too. Honestly, they help us serve. They know Deacon Keith. They know, you know, some of these other deacons on the committees that have helped them in the retreats and stuff. So we just try to communicate, and that's kind of the main thing.
I think I would add one more thing that I just kind of thought of is, I remember Father Andy and Deacon Keith, as Deacon Keith mentioned, when God willing, you're admitted into aspirancy. The meeting with the pastor and the formation director, something stood out to me in that conversation, in that it was made very clear that your ministry is formation now. So when you're in formation, this is your ministry. So, I mean, what that means is many of us have ministries we're currently a part of. And that might be Knights of Columbus, that might be Eucharistic minister, religious education, any number of things, Acts retreats, Acts teams. I mean, you name it. But the reality is, it was emphasized in that meeting to us that this is your ministry formation. And to your question about time management and how that affects the family, we've adjusted a little bit on the ministry side because you will see that formation builds on itself, and as Deacon said, intensifies. Well, your schedule will intensify too. So you will have to be honest with yourselves in adjusting some things perhaps, but that really stood out for me in that you might not be a part of an Acts team this session because of formation. You might have to step back from doing teaching a religious education class because the time that you're having to put into practicum is going to contradict the limited time that you have and so on. So formation is your ministry. And I think that's become more real as the months and years have gone by for us, because there's only so many minutes in a day. And just being honest and being organized and recognizing that, as they say in Spanish, Dios por delante. Got it.
Let's speak a little bit of that too. You guys are eloquent. That's very good. The other piece to this, just to keep in mind, is that once you enter in Deacon Formation, it's not just a program for yourself. This is a program for the church. So the church has a responsibility. We have a responsibility. Our team has a responsibility to you. So though one of the things you'll hear me say many times is that your formation is primarily your responsibility. It's also, but it's our responsibility to support you in that. So, that's why, you talked about your mentor group. We help you to organize your life so that you can see that this is something that is bigger than you are. So family being supportive is critical. It's a critical part of this. If your family is not supportive of what you're doing, that's a discernment issue in itself. If your parish is not willing to support you in this, that's an issue in itself. To be honest with you, and I don't know if we're going to talk about, but our formation is not funded by the Archdiocese. Our formation is funded by you and your parish, and it's just the way that they've organized it here. So there's annual tuition for you, and there's annual tuition from your parish. Your parish has a stake in your formation because they're going to look at you and say that they hope that you'll be a minister there. Of course, you're going to be the ordination is not for your parish, right? The ordination is for the Archdiocese. So this is my third parish that I've been in. So that those things do happen. Now there are some deacons that have been in their parish, and that's in one parish, and that's the only parish they've ever been in. But that's not necessarily the way it's going to work. But the point is that your parish has I've had pastors, the pastor, like the meeting you were talking about, I've had pastors look at the candidate and say, look, if you need something, if you need childcare, if you need anything, you come to me first. There are pastors out there that are willing to support you in that kind of stuff. So this is not something you do on your own, and yet it's still your responsibility. So if that makes sense.
And one thing I would add to that is formation is your second ministry. Your domestic church is your first ministry. And so you really do have to discern as a family your path forward in this process, because it doesn't just affect you. It doesn't just affect your relationship as husband and wife. It affects your entire family. You are going to be asking for aunts and uncles and cousins and friends to help support you with your other needs that you have for your primary responsibility, which is your family. We would never want formation to become a reason that your family begins to struggle. You would never want your attention to your responsibilities in formation to take away your attention from the responsibilities that you have in your domestic church. Because that's why we were given the gift of family, is so that we can be personally responsible to and with each other.
And rather is the opposite, is that our hope and our vision is that formation will enhance your family life. it will help you to grow closer together as a couple and as a family. That's our, now, do we always succeed with that? We can talk about, but that's what our vision is anyway.
I'll add that we're blessed in our cohort that we have a women's gathering on Friday nights, and that's just where we're just honest with each other. This is how it makes me feel. We hear from the other deacons' wives, and so they're helping us grow together as women, like being the spouse of the deacon, what it might mean, how we can help each other balance some of those things or concerns that we have. So I think it's been effective in that as well. So just they are trying to support us in that aspect of our family life. And some of them have, some of their kids are getting married, and and I have some in elementary, and so we just share those things and we laugh together, and we have but we really bring forth what we might be concerned about, and we guide each other, but or even support each other just by listening.
So we've looked at quite a few big picture things already today, but let's narrow it down. Room full of individuals are discerning, beginning an inquiry period that might include submitting an application. What does the work of the next year look like for the people who have assembled today? What would be their time best spent doing between now and the end of March when the application deadline closes?
Well, I think first of all is working with you to get into a mentor group if they haven't already done that. So I think that would be one of those. Mentor groups just meet monthly, and they meet in local, somewhere in your, so Las Vegas, it'd be in Las Vegas, right? Wherever you live, that's where we try to do that. Now in the Albuquerque area, sometimes you might have to drive a little bit across town, but not too much. So that'd be first of all. Second of all is continue your discernment. We have 3 more meetings coming up. I think they'll help you in this process. They'll all have a different characteristic, a little different. Our next meeting is specifically on the discernment. How do you discern this calling? The third thing you can do is if you haven't taken a class in a while. So if it's been a while since you've been in school, you might want to think about taking a class. So there's I know there's some brochures on the table here with there's a program called the Virtual Learning Community for Faith Formation, or VLCFF. It's with the University of Dayton, which is a Catholic college in Ohio, but it's an online program. They're 5-week classes. And I would suggest you start, just take a class. The classes are $50. And if you need help with that, let me know. If you're online, if you go, just email me and I'll send you the information, because if you're interested in doing that. The classes range in all kinds of different topics. They also have classes in Spanish. So it's just a really, really good program. So the classes I would recommend would be Bible Basics is one of the classes, and the other one is Survey of Catholic Doctrine. Those are the 2 classes. There's also a class they offer occasionally on Holy Order, the Permanent Diaconate, discerning a call to Holy Orders. That they offer that. I think they're just finishing it up one right now that they're doing. Those classes run. They're 7 times a year, and they're 5-week classes. So just go online and you can look that up.
The other option that I took advantage of during my inquiry stage, and I think our cohort, we were entering during the COVID time. So, one of the recommendations that was given to me by Deacon Keith was, have you heard of the MTS program through the Norbertine Abbey St. Norbert's College? And I hadn't.
MTS being the Masters of Theological Studies.
Masters of Theological Studies. And I started that program, and it is a master's program. It is face-to-face, community-based. There's a little bit of hybrid virtual, but that's on a case-by-case, class-by-class basis. But typically speaking, if you're in the Albuquerque area, the expectation is that you go to class at the Abbey and you'll take your classes there. And for the most part, that satisfies the course requirements throughout the formation process. with a few exceptions of classes you need to take on a case-by-case basis through the VLCFF. Personally speaking, what appealed to me about this program was the community, was the academic nature of the classes, the conversations. I mean, I think something about holding a book and having a conversation with somebody across the table and just building that community. And it's somewhat cohort based because when you come in, you'll take the classes in the sequence together. So there's a gentleman who is in the cohort before us, Arthur Trujillo, who is who he and I started this program essentially together. So although I didn't go through the formation process with him in the same diaconate formation cohort, I went through in some ways through the MTS, which I had a special bond forged with him. I can't say enough about this program. The instructors are exceptional. We have some Albuquerque-based instructors. We have some instructors that pipe in from De Pere, Wisconsin, from St. Norbert's College. And at the end, the degree is administered and conferred by St. Norbert's College in Wisconsin. So a connection to the Norbertines and a connection to just another pathway, if you will, to the way that you can gain this specific component and requirement and satisfy it. But one of the things I've been fortunate is, I mean, you're paying for a master's degree, but there's assistance. And
how much did that cost?
Very little. I mean, $150, $200 a class versus the going rate. There is substantial assistance.
Financial assistance.
Financial assistance from
well, from both St. Norbert's and from the Ecumenical Institute for Ministry. Yeah.
So I really, if you'd like to talk about that, by all means, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I just finished the program, the class portion. I'm in the thesis stage. So I started that in the inquiry phase, which you can come in at different points and start up with the classes and just work your way through. Definitely an option I would highly recommend.
Amen. Yeah, it's an excellent opportunity, and I'm disappointed that more people don't take advantage of it, because you end up with a master's degree as well as ordination, which is pretty cool. And we have several deacons who have gone through this program, and it's.
Can you tell us a little bit about the bachelor's program through Lewis University?
Yeah, another option, of course, is Lewis University offers a bachelor's degree in leadership with a minor degree in religious studies. So that is also another, if you don't have a bachelor's degree and that's something you want to pursue, that you might want to look into that as well. We haven't had anybody do that yet, because most of the people coming to our program generally have probably a bachelor's degree, but not, you might not, and that's an option. If that's something you're interested in, just see me about that, and I can get you connected.
And what about inquirers who already have maybe a master's of theological studies? Is that part of the application process, or is that something that needs to be brought separately?
No, if that's the case, we would waive some of your coursework, so it would make your the rest of your formation a little bit lighter than you wouldn't have to take some of the classes that you would normally have to take. Not the weekend classes, but the online classes. Just so if you have questions about that, just see me individually. If you've had some coursework in theology.
So is there anything else you'd like to add about this pre-formation stage, this place where we all are?
No, I think it's just it really, at this stage, it's talking and praying, talking it over with your spouse, your family, your pastor. Continue, if you've talked with them once, talk with them again. Do you still see this? Continue to be involved in ministry. So I know Antonio sort of, well, you might have to drop. Well, yeah, but right now the focus should be engaging in ministry. You should be active in ministry in your parish. But you don't become a deacon in order to become a minister. You become a deacon because you're already a minister. Does that make sense?
And for the wives, I mean, we do have to come to classes with them. I know in the past there might they might not have had to years before.
I don't know.
Yeah, before
since
Deacon
I've
Keith,
been
that's what I
reading,
hear.
yeah, maybe.
Like I didn't have to go. So yes, so being able to decide together if that's something you want to do together as well. Just being honest with each other.
I should add, one of the aspects of the application process for the wives, just to let you know, is you will be required to write a letter of recommendation for your husband. That letter has to be in your own handwriting. You can't type it. I mean, this is not my rules. This is the church's rules. They don't want, they want to make sure that this is, you know, your husband didn't type this up and ask you to sign something. Right? So you have to, it has to be in your own handwriting. And I'll be really honest with you. I've had cases in the past where a man applied to be a deacon, and I got the letter from his wife, and she said, "Don't ever think about ordaining this guy." So that could very well be, and then I have to sit down and say and tell the guy he's not going to become a deacon, and I can't tell him why, right? Because that would be, I don't want to ruin their marriage, right? But that's one of the things, is that your husband cannot become a deacon without your express permission.
And it isn't just given once and then check. It's every step along the process. The wife contributes the enthusiasm for the moving forward, not just the hope for it.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. It's every year you'll be asked.
Up to and including the week before ordination.
No, the night before.
The night before ordination.
When I wrote mine on hers, what did you say? I'm like, it's not, I wrote it. I already sent it to you. You'll find out.
That's up to you guys.
I was testing his type A personality.
Obviously, it's here.
So having recently been in the inquiry phase of this process, do you have any advice for inquirers of things to think about or things that were fruitful for you during that year?
I think for me, a couple of things were fruitful, and I just want to point out that what I think I maybe didn't anticipate, but has manifested itself, is just like you, the cohort that I'm now a part of. We sat here and we had an inquiry meeting, and we got some similar advice and information, and you grow together as a cohort. And we're a year and a half in-ish, and to be able to just see brothers and sisters and the people that come month after month, and sometimes you see each other multiple times a month if you're part of the mentor group together, so on. I think lean on each other, I think, is something that I would say as you get to know each other. I think take advantage of the mentor group. That was invaluable for us. I mean, they have become what I think and what I pray will be lifelong family. Our mentor, I mean, we were texting last night about something completely unrelated to formation and to the mentor group. You grow a bond, and it's special, and there becomes an authenticity that is just really special in that group. So ask your questions and use that space that you will be blessed to have, that mentor group that I understand Deacon Doug is facilitating and assigning. That's an amazing space just to ask questions, to struggle, to have maybe the intimate conversations that maybe you just want to have in a smaller setting. It's helpful just for the context. They've gone through this formation process, although in our experience and perhaps in yours, the mentor that you have may have had somewhat of a different experience in terms of the structure of program. So that's always an interesting conversation too. But they're always able to give you information, insightful information as to the process and the prayer line, and how to pray the liturgy of the hours, and how to let you kind of stumble and have a safe space and laugh about kind of, oh, I forgot this or I forgot that. It's a special space. Have conversations with your spouse is another thing that we have conversations, but as the process unfolds, they become more insightful and more substance to them in terms of just formation and discernment process, you get more to talk about. And just, I think maybe the unexpected piece for us is, as we mentioned, we have 4 children, and we had a family day in December of this past year, where the cohort brought their family, whoever's in the house, and we brought our kids. And that day crystallized a lot of what we've been talking about for our kids. And it gave them context to be able to have conversations. Oh, you're going to formation. That's where you. So it's a family affair. And having those conversations, I think, really helped us a lot along the way.
Yeah.
That's a great segue, because I was going to ask this question next. If we look at the different perspectives that exist in the room, we have young families, we have veteran families, we have families of individuals who have never been married, who have been divorced, remarried, widowed. There are lots of situations that exist. What advice do you have for them to leave here today, go back into their situations, and have really targeted conversations with these people? Keeping those perspectives in mind, what are some, I don't know, maybe interview questions that you think might be helpful for them to go home and ask of their family, of their engaged humans, whoever that might be, to help them in their discernment journey?
Well, I think going back to where we started with the Holy Servant leadership stuff. I mean, going back to your family and your friends and your extended families and parishioners, and just having some honest conversations is, do you see this in me? And be ready for an honest answer, right? And ask for honesty about it, because that's part of your discernment, is that, are people going to be able to, if they don't see that in you now, they're not going to see that in you 5 years from now. It's probably, this is what you bring with you in your faith. So I think that's we can develop that and make it grow and help it to grow. But you want to find out, is there something there now? That's how that's what I would ask.
Another piece, perhaps, if I may, that I think has been part of my journey specifically, and I've been told through the formation process will be something that you will encounter should you be ordained potentially several times. I started my conversation with Father Graham. He left our parish, was reassigned, passed away. We got a new pastor. So there might be breaks in who your pastor is throughout formation, and certainly throughout your ministry as a deacon. And having conversations with your pastors. And I think that's an important relationship to cultivate and to have. We're blessed beyond measure to have the support of our pastor, and in our case, the deacons at our parish, specifically Deacon Keith. And I recognize fully that I'm probably living maybe an atypical situation right now with the level of support that I have. And I don't know that that will be the case in 2, 3, 4, 10 years from now. So just having that realization and that reckoning with yourself, that that's an important relationship to have your pastor, and understanding that they come and they go and they all have different personalities, and you are the deacon to support them, and they are the pastor. And I've really taken that to heart.
Also, the notion that you might not be in your parish, there is that whole service and obedience in that aspect, that yes, we get so in tuned and comfortable in our own parishes, but they tell us from day one that we might need you somewhere else. And again, we brought back, okay, we're here to serve. So if that means that you're called here, we have to be able to be okay with that in some respect. And so having those conversations, because we did, oh my gosh, what if we're sent somewhere else? But you know what? That's what we said okay to right now. So you have to be ready for that as well. You haven't experienced it yet, but it could be.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
The only thing I would add to that is that in terms of your pastor, he is the gatekeeper. So in order to make an application in order to receive the application, you have to have a letter from your pastor of recommendation. So that's really all it takes, honestly, and then you can get so you don't have to come to all these meetings or anything, you just get a letter from your pastor and we'll get you an application. But telling you these meetings will help you do your application better, and I think will give you a better leg up in terms of being successful in your application. So, but that's the bottom line, is that you have to have a letter. I have to have a letter in the office from your pastor stating that he recommends you for formation and is willing to take on and to support you in that. Because, if you think about it, who's paying for your parish is paying a big chunk of your formation. So they certainly have a stake in that as well.
Just one more thing that our participants might not have thought of, but it is an important thing to address early on, is language development. There are specific requirements for language development moving forward. So would you talk a little about those?
So the expectation of the Archbishop is that his ordained deacons will be able to lead prayer in both English and Spanish. Now, the exception to that is if your native language is something other than English or Spanish. So if you're Native American, you're from the Philippines or Korean or something, that would then it would be your native language and English would be the expectation. That doesn't mean that you have to be fluent. If you're an English speaker, that you would have to be fluent in Spanish. It means that you have to be able to lead prayer in Spanish. And so we give you some tools in doing that. We'll also do a language assessment in your second year of aspirancy, just to see how we can help you to better develop those skills. So if you're bilingual, you're in pretty good shape. If you're not bilingual, you might want to start thinking about taking a class in either Spanish or English. We do have Spanish speakers that are in the program, and they have the same obligations. So.
Any recommendations on how to get that started? Do you like Duolingo?
I've worked in so many different ways on this. My daughter-in-law has a master's degree in teaching Spanish as a second language. Unfortunately, she lives in Kenya, so at the time we tried to work it out, but the time difference just really made it hard. We'll work. I don't really have. Every community has their own resources. So.
Okay. All right. Well, what have I forgotten to ask about?
I don't think it's pretty. We can ask them what do you need to know that you didn't hear about today?
I would like to ask something about where would I look into the FCS program?
The brochure.
There's brochure right here on the table, and there's a woman by the name of Chris Spahn, Spahn, and you can look her up at Santa Maria de la Vide Abbey. Her information's on the brochure, and just schedule an appointment with her, and she will guide you with the process.
Have a mentoring couple, but we're talking about a mentoring this week.
I'll talk a little about the mentor groups. The mentor groups are focused on discernment. They're called mentor groups because we put you with a mentor for that discernment, but the focus isn't on receiving mentoring. The focus is on discernment. So if you're already part of a group that regularly meets to discern calls to vocation, to discern your life in ministry, that counts. But we also want to connect you with a mentor. So if you're not already in one of those groups, or if you already are working with a mentor, you may want to consider working with one of these discernment mentor groups instead, or in addition to. I will help connect you with a group that's meeting, or help to start a group if there isn't one available in your immediate area, so that monthly you can meet with someone to just discuss how the Holy Spirit is moving in your life, to discuss how, where, and when you experience the calls of ministry. Because some people will call it a call that rings once, you pick it up and you say hello, and it's, I'm all in from that point forward. But for most of us, it's really more of a journey of, I hear the Holy Spirit in my day right now in this way. And I feel it leading me in this way. And having an opportunity to meet with other people who are on that same journey and to have those conversations is the most effective way of responding to that call.
I did think of something, and this is related to this, but different. One of the other things that and means of support for you is that we require once you've been accepted into aspirancy, is we require all of the men at least to have a spiritual director. And so we have Father Chris Holliday is the director of spiritual formation. He's on our formation team. And he works with you in terms of finding a spiritual director. And that the wives are welcome. We encourage the wives to have spiritual directors as well. We'll actually have one of your, I think the second or third class during aspirancy will be on spiritual direction and how to use spiritual directors. So it's not something you have to run out right now and get, but just to know that'll be an aspect of your formation, is that you'll have spiritual direction all the way through your formation and then beyond.
So the Deacon Keith will send out my contact information as a follow-up to today's meeting. Reach out to me, call me, email me, and I'll help you get started on that path of being a part of a mentor group, of a discernment group.
So I know it's subject to change, holidays and all that, but are you like meeting twice a month in person and opposite studies during the week, or how does a typical month work?
A typical month has a Friday evening session, a couple of hours, 6:30 to 8:30 more or less, in person, and a day-long Saturday session, so 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. once a month. In addition to that would be the practicums that come up during both aspirancy and candidacy, and those are scheduled on your own time and in your own schedule so that you can start to participate in the guided ministry of that deacons perform. For example, social justice, or working in hospitals, prisons, the nursing home facilities, those kinds of ministry practice. Teaching.
No, that's everyone.
That's everyone in the formation. But that's done in person where you are. You wouldn't have to come into Albuquerque to do your practicum, right? We try to help make arrangements so that you can perform those responsibilities in the area that you.
Some of them are in your parish.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be in your specific parish. And then in addition to that would be the monthly mentor meetings.
And possibly spiritual director. Yeah, spiritual director. Yeah, it's not, and so it's yeah, and every diocese is a little bit different. Some dioceses, your formation's in a seminary, and you have to go to class every week, there's just different. This is the model that we've adopted here.
And usually the December meeting is a retreat or something like that. So it's not necessarily the same type of experience every month. Not always, but there are some variety in what those sessions are like and how they're formatted. And then there's also a summer break. So we'll meet in May, and then we'll meet again in August.
If June and July typically are off, except that I'll ask you to arrange a meeting with me and your pastor sometime during that time. And then generally we have a retreat at least once a year. So I get a lot of the guys in formation, they call our monthly meetings retreats because they're very prayerful. We do a lot of prayer in our monthly meetings.
And then in between that's when, like Antonio did his master's MTS, so he would go to classes on different weekends. So that, that's how it worked for us too.
And if you're doing classes. And if you're doing the online classes, there's 3 classes a year, and they're 5-week classes. So they're spread out throughout the year. Anybody online have a question?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Sure. I think that your speech today kind of gave us a good idea, and we kind of a repeat for myself.
demanding, very demanding, but our ministry currently are really put aside some of the working on us. Not as intense as I thought it was going to be. Once a month, Friday evening, Saturday. I think it's beautiful. But there is preparation for those classes, and there are assignments. So so it's not just the time there. So you count on about, probably 8 hours a month in prep and writing assignments related to that weekend class. Unless it's a retreat, then you get off. So that's the advantage of the retreats. There's no homework.
Yeah, literally the hours.
Well, we'll teach you. We'll teach you how to do that.
Ours were messy
And
at first.
the liturgy of hours is a little intimidating at first,
Yeah.
and it does feel like it's adding something to your day. But it's kind of like when you're first learning to exercise. And yeah, it's intense at first, but then you start to realize how much it adds to your ability to just do your day. So it's more of an investment of those minutes rather than an expense of those minutes.
And for the wives, I'm sorry. I don't have to turn in all of the assignments as well. I can participate however we can. We've just decided that, he takes time. I read it as well, and then I check it. So I'm his editor.
Check his homework.
For us, it works that I'm able to participate. I might not have done my own reflection, but we participate that way together. And so same thing, we're balancing that way. Like kids are here, dad's doing his homework, but then we come together and then we talk about, so that's worked for us, but just that, so you're not scared, like, do I have to do this too? There are some things we need to do, but you can keep to let us know.
I would just add, it's been mentioned already, but and there was a class on spiritual direction last year. I found great value in that because through all of these, through the mentor group, through formation, through practicum, through your classes, you're having a community experience, but you're also having an individual experience. And on a monthly basis, you're going to walk away with perhaps some questions, some struggles, some wonders. And I have found that the blessing of spiritual direction has given me a space to personalize my formation and to kind of say, hey, I've been thinking about this. What do you think? And then it's just a space. And sometimes it's within confession, other times it's not within confession. Your spiritual directors, and it doesn't have to be a priest. Unfortunate that mine is, but I just think that's also just a nuance and a piece of the program that I found to be really helpful. And originally, if I'm being honest, I was like, oh, another meeting a month. But I've grown to really appreciate that monthly spiritual direction.
The only other thing I want to add too, is if you haven't been to SantaFeDeacons.net, please go there and look at the formation. There's tons of information on there about all the stuff we've talked about to reinforce. There's tons. So SantaFeDeacons.net.
Hello, guys. I got a quick question.
Sure.
So I work for the BNSF. My schedule currently is a 5 and 2. I'm on call during my 5 on. We're soon to be changing over to a 10 and 4, working 10 days on. Basically, every other weekend I'll be off. Those weekends that I do work or I'm on call, I'm supposed to be in some areas. I have a territory from Albuquerque, El Paso, over to Cal. So I'm supposed to be in those areas. These meetings that we're going to have here, as far as our mentor group, your spiritual mentor, Are there various dates that we choose from, or are they pretty much solid that we have to be there at that time and those dates?
Well, the mentor groups, I can say, the group manages themselves. They're not assigned a time or a place to meet. As a group, they decide when their meetings are going to be held. And so there is some flexibility in being able to schedule those among the participants. And it's not a big group. It's a group of maybe the mentor with 2, 3, I think one of the biggest groups has 4 people, 4 couples who meet together. So they've been able to manage themselves pretty flexibly on when to schedule those meetings based on the schedules of the people in that group. And then spiritual direction is just between you and your spiritual director. And so that is just between your 2 personal schedules.
Yeah, the monthly meetings, then we try to give you as much notice as possible. I usually try to publish the dates and the topics for our monthly meetings in early spring, so that you'll have them all the way through for over a year ahead of time for some of the dates. And I can't tell you it's going to be the second Saturday of the month. It just doesn't. Holidays always mess up everything. So Balloon Fiesta is the biggest mess up because we have people. You know, our meetings typically are here on the Catholic, on the Pastoral Center. And so we have people from Clovis and from Taos coming, you know, these classes and they have to get lodging sometimes. So I can't do anything during Balloon Fiesta. It would cost them an arm and a leg to get lodging. So anyway, so but I do, we get the schedule and I have to get instructors and all that kind of stuff lined up as well. So you'll have a schedule, but again, it's a fixed date. There's nothing I can do about that. And you're expected to be there. If you can't be there, you need to let me know, and you need to let me know why. It has to be a good reason. The scrutiny committee would look at if you're missing a bunch of classes, they're going to look and say, well, maybe this isn't the time, right? So it's not that if we have had something, a death in the family or something like that comes up. Obviously, we work with you on that.
Has anybody ever applied and then they're applying and then they apply again and get accepted? Do you apply more than one time?
Maybe. So the way our system works right now is that the Archbishop Wester he would either accept you into formation, he would not accept you into formation, or delay and say, hey, you're not ready yet. You need to work on this. So that, that's where the maybe thing comes in. Now, we have had instances where people applied and were denied and then came back later and reapplied. And we had a gentleman who started his application process in I think the year 2002, and he'll be ordained next year. But and the problem is that he had an impediment. So there are impediments. There are things that you might have to deal with that have to be overcome before you can be ordained. So, for example, if you ever left the church and if you were a baptized Catholic, left the church and joined another church, and then came back to the Catholic Church, that's an impediment. And so we would have to, and the Archbishop would do this, but the Archbishop actually has to appeal to Rome and get that impediment removed. And so that's a lengthy process. So yeah, it can happen, but what we try to do, what the Archbishop tries to do, is to be more clear and say, if you're not accepted, but you maybe later, this is what you need to do in order to make it happen. All right.
Good.
Awesome.
Bless you all. Good luck.
Yes.
I'm praying for you.
And you want to close with prayer?
I think we should. Would you like to lead our closing prayer?
Sure. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this time, the time that you've given to us, and the time we've devoted to you. Lord, we ask that you would make this time fruitful for us in our lives, that all of us, and as we continue to discern your call and your will in our lives, we'll have clarity and knowledge as to what we need to do next. Lord, we ask your blessings upon these inquirers, these people, these men and these women who are seeking your will and your knowledge to know how they should lead their lives. Send your Spirit, your Holy Spirit, to be with them, to enkindle in their hearts the fire of your love. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace, huh? Or pieces or something.
Classes, I've really enjoyed them at Dayton.
Awesome. If you